and he's much more impressive. Non-contact practices, only a little bit of 11-on-11 work, but you see what the 49ers are expecting. And what they're expecting is the best, bookend to Nick Bosa since Bosa arrived in 2019. And I feel pretty comfortable that they're going to have it. And then the other thing that jumped out, the first two guys that they drafted, Ricky Pearsall and Renardo Green, they both look really good. Pearsall got a lot of reps with Brock Purdy because so many wide receivers were holding out or hadn't signed or hadn't reported. So it meant that Pearsall cycled through with that first-team group quite a bit and seems to already have a nice rapport with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy was not shy about throwing the ball in Pearsall's direction, and usually those throws ended up in completions. And then Green, as promised, ended up playing a lot in the slot, a lot at nickel. They'd love for him to come in and kind of wrestle away that spot. I mean, that would allow Diamador Lenore to hang out on the outside full time. And I don't know if that's going to come to pass for week one, but again, just everything that they advertised about him, the feistiness, the close coverage, smart, has picked it up quickly. All of that was on display in those few practices that we watched.
Yeah, Pearsall definitely looks sharp, Matty. I think it was Mayoko who wrote the other day that it's possible that the Niners don't sign Aiyuk to a long-term contract and just let him play out the final year of his deal and see where it goes from there. How would that surprise you if no deal gets done for Aiyuk and the scenario that Mayoko lays out actually came to fold?
Yeah, it would, only because they've been able to sign their guys in the past. As I've been saying throughout the spring, I mean, it's I don't want to say it's contentious, but difficult negotiation right now with Aiyuk. But so was the Deebo Samuel one, so was the Nick Bosa one, and they both eventually got done. It is interesting, though, that the 49ers used a first-round pick on a wide receiver. That wide receiver has played well this spring. I would think that only strengthens the 49ers' stance at this point. I still think something is going to get done. I still think it would be a travesty if Brock Purdy went into this season without his favorite target. All those fines will start piling up in the summer. No indication that the 49ers will forgive Aiyuk for absences the way that they did for Nick Bosa. So I still think it gets done. But this team is fairly deep, or deeper than it was at wide receiver. Certainly from a year ago.
Yeah, Matt, I agree with you. And we all have egos, especially these top-tier athletes like Brandon Aiyuk. And it's funny, I was telling Larry, with Bosa and Deebo, as they, did their business, they didn't have to watch, other guys get, deals left and right. And right now, that's what Aiyuk is doing. The wide receiver market is booming, and he's on the sideline. So if you put himself in his shoes, Matt, do you feel sorry for him? How good do you think Brandon Aiyuk is in your estimation?
I mean, I think he is a key component to this offense, and he's a key component to making Brock Purdy successful. So, I mean, everything is tied together. Is Brandon? I mean, the bottom line is how much money is he worth? Is he worth Justin Jefferson level money? I don't think that anybody believes that. Is he worth Amon-Ra St. Brown money? I think we're closer to that one. I mean, I feel like that should be the basis for this negotiation. And maybe the 49ers can work it in a way where he comes out a little bit ahead of St. Brown and sort of saves face in that regard. But I think that's the type of receiver that we're talking about. Number one receiver, 1,000-yard receiver, 10 touchdown receiver, but maybe not at the very top of the market level that Justin Jefferson just signed at.
Such an interesting conversation because Deebo has gotten paid, Jennings has gotten paid, and now Aiyuk's waiting to get paid. And there's still speculation that the Steelers may come knocking for Deebo at some point. And I think even Albert Breer kind of wrote it this week, Matt, that that they'd like to have Aiyuk signed long term, but he could envision a scenario where teams come, keep calling on Deebo, and if the Niners are satisfied with the rest of their free agent or the rest of their wide receiver core, that maybe they would move Deebo this year. I kind of thought of it as maybe he'd be here for the whole year. What's your read on that? If you're a wagering man, are you wagering that Deebo somebody comes knocking for him in a trade, or do you think he plays the full year here?
I mean, I think he plays the full year here. I mean, that's the way it's sort of scripted for the 49ers. You've got a very motivated Deebo Samuel who's going to probably get another bite at free agency in March. And so, that would motivate him to have another, 2021-like season. I mean, that was the other year that preceded a foray into the free agent market. And he was sensational that year. He was the 49ers offense that year. So if they even get a fraction of that Deebo, that's a real asset. Now, what happens if the 49ers spin out or there are big injuries elsewhere and it's clear that they're not going to go deep into the playoffs? They're not going to have this core of receivers next year. One of these guys is going to go. So if they could get something for one of those guys in a trade, I think that's a plausible scenario. But if things are going well, if the 49ers are, have a shot at the playoffs and Deebo Samuel is playing well, I think the plan is to have all of that group intact for this last push to a Super Bowl.
It's Larry Krueger and Daryl the Guru Johnson on 95.7 The Game. We have the pleasure to be joined by Matt Barrows, who covers the Niners for The Athletic. Matt, I'm going to ask you a question because I cannot just get this vision out of my head, and it was unfortunately the Dre Greenlaw injury in the Super Bowl. I hated every part of it, but I feel like, Matt, nobody's talking about how they're going to try to replace his production. How big of a deal is it for this organization to replace what Dre Greenlaw brought every Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, they think that he's a Pro Bowl caliber player. And it's not just the speed and the tackling and the ability to get to the sideline. He's excellent at that. It's the feistiness that he brings. So, I mean, the bottom line is that you can't replicate it. They're going to put Devondre Campbell, longtime Green Bay Packers. He's one of the few week one starters who's been out there this spring, one of those newcomers that I was describing, who's kind of getting as up to speed in the system as he possibly can. So that's the plan, is to have Devondre Campbell do his best Dre Greenlaw impersonation for probably the first month, the first 4 games of the season, and then have Greenlaw come back at 100%. Now, will Greenlaw be Dre Greenlaw in that first game back? I mean, how long will the ramp up be? I think the 49ers are confident that by the second half of the season, he's back to being the guy that we've been watching the past few years.
I asked Fred Warner, I said, which of the young linebackers, has kind of looked impressive to you during these OTAs? And then he took my question and said, D. Winters has been the best 49er during the OTAs. I mean, he didn't say linebacker. He's been the best guy out here. I've also been impressed by Braden Willis at tight end a lot. I think Darrell Luter at corner has shined a lot as well. What do you think, Matty? You've been out there and watched this stuff and have watched more of this through the years than I have. Which Niners are you seeing? What Fred's seeing with D. Winters, and if not, which 49er or two has stood out to you during these OTAs?
Yeah, I don't know if you were watching. They were doing a 7-on-7 drill in the red zone, and D. Winters came out with an interception there. I mean, there's an opening right now. We're talking about Devondre Campbell and Fred Warner being the Week 1 starters. They often play with a third linebacker there, and I think that spot is wide open for D. Winters to fill in there. And we're just talking about how do you replace Trey Greenlaw. I mean, the reason why they chose D. Winters, I guess it was the 6th round last year, Larry, I think that's right, is because he reminded them a lot of Trey Greenlaw, sort of that same physique, the same speed. That's where D. Winters really excels. He's he's probably the fastest linebacker. He's one of the fastest guys on the team. So, it's very kind of easy to see him kind of falling into that role. He'd be a real asset on special teams as well. That whole special teams unit is sort of being reshuffled, just the whole look of it, given the new kick return rules. But, he's one guy. I mean, I thought Elijah Mitchell looked really good. He's just somebody whose career has been sidetracked year after year by injuries, but when he's out there, he really looks the part, really fast, and if he can stay healthy for a full season, can really kind of give Christian McCaffrey some breathers here and there, and I think the 49ers would feel a lot better about taking McCaffrey out of football games, which is something that a lot of fans kind of freak out about. Seeing Christian McCaffrey late in the fourth quarter, a blowout wins doesn't seem very smart. But I think if Elijah Mitchell were healthy, the 49ers would do that a lot more often.
Matt, let's stay with McCaffrey, who's actually celebrating a birthday today. He turns 28. He got his new deal this week. And at 28, Matt, normally that's when running backs start to decline. Any kind of, a little concern about a decline with McCaffrey at 28 in his new deal?
I don't think so. I mean, that's why the 49ers gave him this deal. Anybody who watched Christian McCaffrey in the Super Bowl saw a guy who was running just as hard and it was just as effective as he was in Pittsburgh and in Week 1. I think that they feel like the way he trains, there's a few guys in this team that are just at a different level as far as their diet, their training. Bosa's one, Christian McCaffrey's another. Fred Warner's another at that level. I mean, they just do everything right. So the idea is that if you do everything right, then you can get into your 30s and you're going to be just fine. So, I mean, the way I read it, I think that what is it, the 2027 cap number for Christian McCaffrey is a huge number, $27.5 million, I think. So it reads to me like it's a 3-year deal, and then we'll see. So that gets him to age 31, and I think at age 31 he's going to be a lot like he is right now at age 28.
Matty, 3 camp battles I want your 3 predictions on. Right guard, slot corner, free safety. It seems like those are probably the spots that are most open. Who would you say is going to be the Week 1 starter, right guard, slot corner, free safety?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to get John Feliciano out of right guard. The 49ers just loved his consistency, the fact that he's a veteran. He's seen it all. I think they all believe that Spencer Burford is the best prospect of those guys, the most athletic. It's just consistency with Burford. And we saw that on that fateful play in the Super Bowl. I mean, that was a Burford screw up that took away a touchdown in overtime. So that's the downside of a young player like that. Nickel cornerback. I mean, I know Renardo Green is going to be competing for that spot. I mean, if he pulls it off, I think the 49ers would be very happy. That's a hard job to give to a rookie. However, veterans are usually better at it. They've seen it all. Week 1, I still think that it's probably going to be Deommodore Lenoir sliding inside, and then it's somebody else, Isaac Yiadom, your guy, Darrell Luter, coming in as the outside cornerback on third down. And then, for the Talanoa Hufanga role, I mean, I'm not exactly sure how the 49ers split it up, but I think that the two starting safeties in week one, while Hufanga is still coming back from this injury, are going to be George Odom and Jair Brown. So they'll mix them up. Probably Odom will be more of the free safety if you had to delineate it like that. But that's who I see being the starters at that spot.
He is Matt Barrows from The Athletic. Matt, we know you're busy. Thank you so much. A lot of good stuff. Have a good weekend, buddy.
All right, anytime, guys.